y'all. Welcome to Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. I'm Mandy. I'm just a mom sitting down with real Texas parents having real conversations about what's going on in our schools. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Dr. Tracy Hanson from Oak Creek Academy in Killeen, Texas. Dr. Hanson is a mother, a grandmother, a sister of a neurodivergent brother, and the founder of an early childhood development school along with Oak Creek Academy. Dr. Hanson, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mandy. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here and hear your story because my, oh my, does it encompass so much of what parents and great patriots like yourself are fighting for in Texas with the parent empowerment movement.
Yes.
So let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
A few decades ago?
Yes, just a few.
Just a few. Let me hear about your experience in your public school growing up and what led you to want to pursue to be a public school teacher.
Well, you know that our representative, Brad Buckley, is a lifelong friend of mine. His mother was my first grade teacher, and that's where the love of teaching came from. I wanted to be just like her. I'd go home in the afternoons and go in the garage and set up the classroom, and I'd teach all of my fur animals or my friends. And so I was going to be a teacher just like Mrs. Buckley. And Brad and I were friends. We were childhood friends from age 4. Mm-hmm. Our mothers were great friends, best friends. And Brad's grandmother was actually a teacher to my parents. So very rooted in Killeen. And yes, education has always been my thing.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
So then you graduated from high school, went to college, and decided to become a teacher.
I did.
Okay.
I am still a teacher. I will always be a teacher. I love public school. I love private school. But yes, this is where I've 37 years now.
You love public school and you love private school because deep down you love
kids.
That's it.
Yeah, it's all about the kids. And that's what we've forgotten about.
I think so. I think that's correct. And so when you were in the public school, you experienced some things and you saw some things, and that combined with you, I mentioned your brother is neurodivergent.
Yes, he is.
And you saw there are kids, particularly those with special needs, that are falling through the cracks.
Yes.
Which led you down the path to Oak Creek Academy.
Oak Creek Academy.
So let's hear the story. How did that happen? What was your experience as a public school teacher that then launched you down this path to serve kids with autism, dyslexia, a whole host of special needs that are right there in the heart of Killeen?
Yes. Let me take it back just a second.
Okay.
When I was growing up, of course, I have a brother with a learning challenge and cerebral palsy. Okay. And I watched my parents never put limits. And it was like, nope, we're going snow skiing. And I'm thinking, okay, he can only use one arm, so how's he going to hold a pole?
Yeah.
And, he limps, very, it's very hard for him to walk steady. How's he going to ski? And I watched my parents say, well, we're going to do it. He water skied, he played sports, and he did everything to the best of his ability. And I think that was always instilled in me. You don't have to be perfect. Just do it to the best of your ability. Mm-hmm. And when I was in 5th and 6th grade in elementary school, and this was in the 70s, and of course, this is something that we don't get an opportunity to do much anymore, but unfortunately, there was segregation, a lot of segregation with our special needs kiddos. And they were at the end of the hallway, and I remember behind these steel doors. And I'm sure that, there were noise and, there's, that people might be uncomfortable with. And so I could not wait to get my work done every day because I got to go down there and volunteer. And so that was the highlight of my day, is to go down and read to them and do art projects with them, wheel the ones around in a wheelchair that were bound to a wheelchair, dance with them. And so my heart was always for those children that needed, just that little extra.
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking about Oak Creek Academy and the way it has evolved, it was for that child that just needs that little extra. But we don't ever need to put limits on anybody. Mm-hmm. So that was where that heart came from. And that's kind of what led me to do what I'm doing today.
That's beautiful. So you went to school and you got a degree in education,
I did.
and then you went back to Killeen
Hmm.
and you started to teach.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can we hear a little bit about that?
Absolutely. As an educator, you have 22 kids in a classroom and you're all by yourself. And you're teaching and you think you're doing a great job. And then you realize that maybe Missy didn't understand that assignment or understand those skills. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to her and we'll go back and I'll reteach that. And then I look over and Michael got it in 2 seconds. And Michael needed a lot more challenging than what I could give. So I was always teaching to the median. And so my babies down here needed that extra help, and those up here, needed to be challenged, and it was just me.
Yep.
So it was very difficult to do that. And so I felt like, I'm not giving them everything I can because I can't. Time and everything that, the parameters that are put on us. So it was frustrating, and I felt like, I need to do something to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So your time there, you realized because of your heart for those with special needs that needed the little bit more, something a little bit different, different environment. So then you decided, I can go serve these kids.
Yes. And at the time, I developed a child development center. I was very fortunate to be able to build one, do the curriculum just like I felt like it needed to be, and just give that quality preschool from birth to 5.
Yep.
And then we had a before and after school care program.
Okay.
And that was ticking along. Everything was great. And I felt like I was making a huge difference in my community. And one day I was sitting at my desk and I was watching the front door and I was like, this mom was here yesterday. Why is she picking up at 11 o'clock? It's almost nap time. It's almost lunch. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, it's 1 o'clock. She's back. I guess, where have they been? And so somebody else's parent did that. And so I thought, okay, I'm just getting curious and I want to see what's going on. And so I started asking questions and realized that these families were going to take their kiddos to therapies. So they were going to speech, or they were going to occupational therapy, or, whatever that was that they were trying to get that extra for their kiddos. And so I was very good friends, and still am very good friends with a friend, a girl that lives in Killeen that has a therapy company.
Okay.
And I called her and I was like, okay, I need a speech pathologist. And I have this little section in the gym. And can I just stick her right there? And then she can just do speech all day long because I have so many little ones that need early intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And so she agreed, and we got somebody, and she came and sat, and Jennifer just changed lives, doing speech all day long. So that led to occupational therapy being needed in the building. That led to physical therapy needing and behavior therapy. And so that changed and shaped who we were to where we are now. And that was in this little bitty gym.
Yep.
And I think when I think back that employers letting their employees go in the middle of the day, 3 and 4 times a week. So what kind of pressure does that put on an employer? What kind of pressure was that putting on the families? And about a year after we had started the therapies, a parent came to me and said, a couple came to me and said, can we talk to you? And, when a parent wants to talk to you, you're like, sure, okay. And they came to tell me that I saved their marriage. That's
amazing.
The stress that it was causing them to have to leave work 3 to 5 times a week to take their baby to different therapies so that he would have an opportunity to be successful. And the stress that it was causing on them. No, I can't get off work. You're going to have to do it. No, I called in yesterday. You're going to have to do it. They came to me and told me I saved their marriage.
Oh, my goodness.
That was like, wow, that is amazing.
That is amazing.
That's amazing.
That's
and
something that
it
we
was
don't
just
talk
something
about.
so small, but yet it
was
took
everything.
such relief and stress off of them.
That's amazing, because we do know that parents with children with disabilities, with special needs, have higher divorce rates.
Oh, yes.
Because of the stress. Oh, wow. That is a beautiful story and another aspect of parent empowerment, quite frankly,
That's right.
that really does change lives.
Yes, it does.
Well, that's amazing. How beautiful. I'm so tickled to hear that story.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So then you realized
We're out of room.
we're at a room and there's a need.
Yes, there's a great need. Our
Because just
phone
because
was
they're
ringing.
5 doesn't mean that dyslexia, autism, other
No one
lagging behind
Right.
is fixed.
That's right. And by this time, we had already expanded to 3rd grade in the small building.
Okay.
Parents didn't want to leave. That's
Right.
like, yes, I'll take that problem.
Yeah.
And so it was like, let's have kindergarten, let's have 1st grade, let's have 2nd grade, let's have 3rd grade. And at one time, I was the teacher of 1st grade through middle school. I mean, I did it all. It was like the little house on the prairie kind of thing. And it was amazing because everybody was learning at their own level. And it just worked beautifully. So I was like stuck. Like, okay, we don't have any more room to grow. So we've got to start looking for something else. And so we looked for another building. We got to take over a retired elementary building in Killeen. And that's where we are now with 35,000 square feet and a gym and huge playgrounds. And so, yes, we have grown into this building. We have clinical speech, occupational and physical therapy, behavioral therapy, counseling, and we even do haircuts because our population of kiddos has a very difficult time going to a beauty shop or a barber shop, a lot of sensory issues. And so we just bring somebody in once a month and we do haircuts.
That's amazing. So let's talk about your kiddos. You've gone into this. These are children with special needs.
Yes.
Who are the kids that you are serving?
We're serving children with autism. That's our biggest population.
Okay.
The spectrum is so wide.
Yep.
So we have lower functioning to higher functioning. And you'll go into a classroom and they'll look like neurotypical kids.
Okay.
Until you learn about those little quirks. And, we all have quirks, right?
Sure.
And so I don't know, is there anybody that's really typical anymore?
No.
We use that very loosely. Children with dyslexia, children with ADHD, children with anxiety, children with mental illness that have spent time in a mental hospital. And a lot of that has been driven by, and I will tell you, the STAR test. I've had 2 students that had near nervous breakdowns because of the STAR test. And once they came out, they were, they looked for an alternative to the public school system.
Yeah.
And we don't do STAR testing.
What do you do?
We do criterion reference testing. We don't care where a child compares to other children.
Okay.
We want our kids to be successful and to grow academically.
Yep.
As long as they're growing academically, socially, emotionally, I don't care how they compare to somebody else.
Yeah.
So we do that 3 times a year. We make sure the data is showing that we are teaching these children.
Good.
They are learning.
That's great.
And we are accountable.
That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing all those different aspects of how you operate and, quite frankly, who you're serving, those kids that are not thriving in the traditional public school environment that they're assigned to simply because they live on a specific street.
That's right.
So then let's talk about operations a little bit. Would you be willing to share with us your tuition?
Sure.
Okay.
It's $9,360 a school year.
It's what?
$9,360 a school year.
And you are serving special needs students.
Yes. 98% of our population is
98% of your
as an
kids.
IEP.
Wow. And you're doing it for less than $10,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Not without sacrifice.
So let's talk about that. I hear this a lot when I talk to great leaders like yourself, almost all of whom come out of the public system and realize, hold on, I'm called to serve those babies, as you called them, those children that do not do well in that environment. And they tell me, most of the time it's probably about the sacrifices that they make. Would you be willing to talk about publicly the sacrifices that you have made, as well as your team, that many of whom came from the public sector as well?
Yes. So I went 5 years without a salary. When I did take a salary, it was $60,000. So I'll just let you know,
Yeah.
and Brad has asked me that publicly as well on the floor.
You're not
So-
making $600,000
No, I don't make
$600,000.
$600,000. I wish I did,
Yeah.
Mandy.
Mhm.
But my teachers that come from public school
Mhm.
are sacrificing their salary.
Yeah.
They don't make that they could make in public school.
Right.
Especially in Killeen. Killeen has a very, a much higher salary than a lot of our smaller districts even around us.
Mhm.
We have no benefits. They have no health insurance. I personally have no health insurance. I have no retirement. They have no retirement. But it's a calling, and we do it because it's a calling. And we are put on this earth for a purpose.
Yeah.
And our purpose is to serve. And this is the purpose that we have chosen. And we are going to serve these kids until we can't.
So what would an education savings account mean to you and your team and your kids?
I would say the first thing it's going to really help us is with resources. We don't have the STEAM labs like, so many do. We don't have the high technology that so many, we can have so many Chromebooks a year and buy so many iPads and, because we're very limited in our budget. Mm-hmm. So resources for the children is going to be always going to be my number one thing.
Yeah.
Salaries for my staff.
Mm-hmm.
They're worth more than they'll ever make.
Right.
And that heart is what makes them, so much more than anything else. Yeah. Benefits. I do lose teachers because they need benefits.
Yep.
And of course, that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Retirement. Everybody needs something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it would mean those benefits also for our staff and our teachers.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
the real business aspects and the sacrifices, because a lot of times there's a narrative pushed that education savings accounts are for the rich. Yes. Or that they are going to be to serve schools that are charging, $35,000 a year. And those schools and parents can do that. Or they can go to people that are making, astronomical amounts. But the reality is the way that ESAs are set up is to first and foremost, everybody deserves an opportunity to select the school and use an ESA, but that there's a priority for kids like the ones that you are serving.
Right.
And the teachers and the team and the resources that could serve these kids better,
right,
if the money would actually follow them.
Mm-hmm.
We hear all the time from, it always amazes me, there's a group called Disabilities Rights Texas, and I am always blown away at, I don't know if it's I don't really know what it is, but yeah, you shook it. You know exactly. And they are a part of the system, and they claim to advocate on behalf of the kids just like your own. Mm-hmm. And it amazes me how little trust is placed in the parents who are with their children every day and how many years they let children suffer, when the reality is, if you had the ability to accept education savings accounts, would you grow?
Absolutely.
Would you grow because you've had parents show up at your door that end up not coming?
You're going to probably tug on my heartstrings.
Why don't they come?
It's money. And it's what keeps me up at night. It's what is very difficult for me, because I want it to be free or low cost, that anybody and everybody that needs us or needs an outlet or an alternative to a public school system could have. I tour families weekly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stories: bullying, restraining to injury, lack of knowledge of a certain neurodiverse group. And I hear these stories, and it's very difficult when I give them the tour
Mm-hmm.
I cry with them. I hug them and say, this is the place. And then for them to realize there's not a scholarship available to give them that tuition for their child to be able to come. And we hired a grant writer. We thought, that's going to be the ticket. We're going to get grant money, and we're going to be able to, anybody that comes through that door will never have to say, I'm sorry. We got $0 through grants. And it's almost like Bell County is in a bubble. We still have not really figured it out. There are Williamson County, Tarrant County, like if you're in this county, we've got these donors, we've got this foundation, we have Bell County, and everybody's, if you're with that population, there's money out there. Well, we've tried, and
you hired a grant writer.
We hired a grant writer,
and not a single dollar came in.
I will say we got $1,000 from Walmart and $1,000 from HEB, but I didn't need a grant writer to do that. I could have done that on my own.
Right.
And I'm thankful to Walmart. I'm thankful to HEB for, that money. We put that money, towards bikes and, and things for the kids, but it wasn't enough to give
health insurance to your teachers
or health insurance to my teachers. Right. And so it made it, it makes it very difficult. And fundraising, it's myself and then Miss Jennifer. Miss Jennifer is my sidekick, my director, my everything. It's just the two of us trying to run a school and do everything.
Yeah.
And so if it comes to fundraising, I've got to come up with the fundraising.
Right.
And we have a great board, but they're very supportive, but they need those ideas to run with. And we get very little through fundraising. So ESAs would change everything in our community for the families that need us. We'd say, absolutely, come. We have room. We have plenty of room for growth. And I'll bring in as many portables as I need to make sure that we can house everybody that needs a place.
So you said that the education savings accounts, because your kids right now that come, you're a private school serving those with special needs who receive, if they went to the public school, significantly more funding is attached to them. It's a weight, right? And varying, you said, the spectrum, and there are different weights or different additional pots of money that come with a child.
That's right.
But your parents say thank you, and they leave tens of thousands of dollars that is supposed to be used for their child. They leave it on the table because they need your environment.
That's right.
They need your environment so their children can learn to read. They need your environment so their children are not bullied.
Can make friends.
Can make friends.
Can learn skills to live independently or interdependently.
And that's what you're offering your community.
Yes.
And there are families in your community that need Oak Creek Academy for their kids, and they can't afford the less than $10,000. And they would walk away if they could use an education savings account.
Yes.
What do you want the public to know about your kids?
They're special. They're part of our community. We can't live in a world without them. The gifts that they bring are incredible. I have some fabulous stories. When you walk in Oak Creek, you're going to see happy, loved, safe kids that might be 15 years old and have never been invited to a birthday party. Never ridden a bike. But with the help of their peers, they're riding a bike for the first time at age 15 or 16. Their peers are encouraging them to do that. Do you think that's going to happen in a public middle school or high school? No. They're going to be bullied to the point of suicidal ideation, which
Mhm.
has happened.
Yep.
I have kids that were being bullied so badly that they didn't want to live anymore.
Mhm.
They are now some of the best kids and the best cooks. We cook all the time. They have a chance to be normal,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Because what is normal? Normal is what we make it. Normal is what we feel. And when you come, and that's why Brad is so adamant.
Brad Buckley, chairman of House Public Education.
Yes.
He was the author of the Education Savings Account legislation last year.
Yes.
Okay, that's who you're talking about.
That's who
I
I'm
just want to make sure
talking
everybody knows.
about. Yes, and that's why he's so adamant about this.
Yeah.
Is he walks through those doors of Oak Creek. He talks with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
He'll just say, how did they come up with those questions? Those
Yeah.
are incredible questions. And look at these athletes. We have field day. He'll come and walk around and get squirted with a water gun and, just love on them just like I do.
Yeah.
But he sees the difference because he's in public schools.
Yeah.
He's not opposed to public schools. I'm not opposed to public schools. Public schools are great for some kids.
Yep.
And may I say, too, that we keep hearing, these masses are going to leave the public school system. Well, if a child is thriving in public school, why are they going to leave?
That's right.
If they're an athlete and they're the star of the football team, why are they going to leave?
That's right.
If they have a great cheerleading captain or coach and they're the captain of cheerleading, they're not leaving.
That's right.
But the kids that need a different environment, those are the kids that we want.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kids that we want to give an opportunity to make a difference in this world. Because that's our future. Those kids are our future.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you. I want to backtrack a little bit. I brought up Disabilities Right Texas. That again, it just wears me out because I've done podcasts with mothers whose children have attempted suicide, mothers whose kids have been abused, and people don't realize this. Actually, the public school system does pay for private school for certain kids, but usually it is after something really drastic has happened, right?
Right.
But I go back to organizations that proclaim to want to serve the least among us, and yet they advocate against you.
Yes.
And against your kids having your school and parent empowerment for parents to have the right to send their child to your school to get their kid out of a school where they're being bullied to the point of suicidal ideation, or to get their kid to a school so they can actually learn to read or ride a bike or whatever it is. Why do people that claim to love and support kids, particularly kids that have special needs, why do you think they stand in your way?
Fear. I think they're afraid. I think they don't have the full picture of what really goes on in a household.
Yeah.
They haven't walked the shoes. When you do and lead a school like Oak Creek Academy, you walk in those same shoes.
Yeah.
That baby will not walk in the door today because he didn't want to put on a sweatshirt, but it was 30 degrees outside, and Mama is struggling to get him in the door. But we understand that, and we're not going to say we'll take him home until he decides to come back, which happens in public school.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reinforcing that behavior, which that's a whole nother ballgame. But I think it's fear. I think it's fear of the unknown, of what's really going to help these kids.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I just, it always is perplexing to me because I know a year ago I talked to the Key Center. You were talking about Tarrant County, and that's in that area. And there are so many great leaders like yourself that are called to serve children that have disabilities or special needs. And it is always amazing to me that those that claim to want to serve them are constantly advocating against parents and against great leaders in schools like you're running that parents want and need. And they don't see the tears that fall by you and the parent who can't get their kid into your environment.
Right.
So when education savings accounts pass, because it's coming.
It's coming, Mandy. It's coming.
We're going to pass it. What does that mean for Oak Creek Academy? And what does that mean for the students in Killeen and the surrounding areas that need something different?
Well, it's going to be an exciting time.
Yeah.
For sure. It means growth. It means being able to help all parents that need a different environment for their kids.
Yeah.
It's going to mean our community, it has something very special that can be shared with other communities.
Mm-hmm.
And the day when that day comes, we are going to have just a big old party. I just cannot wait until that day comes because we've been working at it for a while.
We have. So what do you want well-meaning? Because that's the thing. There is a cabal of profiteers, the lobbyists, those involved in architecture, engineering, construction that are driving up the cost of education. There is a cabal that wants to stand in the way. But the majority of people, I think you hit the nail on the head, they're just afraid. They don't know and they don't understand. What would you say to Disabilities Rights Texas and all these other entities that likely want to help kids, I think? What do you say to them to make them see that the future is serving every individual child and making sure that they're in the right environment, not the dictated environment, but the right environment? What do you say to those that are well-meaning but that oppose school choice and education savings accounts?
So I think choice is the biggest thing. We have choice in everything we do in life.
Yeah.
You may not shop at H-E-B. You may prefer Walmart. You may prefer to live in an apartment. You may prefer to live in a house. But those are choices that we have. And as human beings, we are not shaped the same. And what works for one does not necessarily work for the other. And I think for so far too long, we've tried to put that square peg into the round hole.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional system does not necessarily work for all children. Well, it doesn't work for all children. I mean, that's a fact. There's data that shows that. So we've got, but if you're going to be for all children, then give all children the same rights. When I send my neurodiverse child to a public school system, they don't necessarily have the same rights as the neurotypical child. You say they do. You have an IEP that says, they're going to get 30 minutes of speech 3 times a week, one-on-one or in a small group. But can you really give that? The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing a lot of things out there being discussed about IEPs not being met.
Mm-hmm.
Parents don't know. Parents aren't informed. Parents send their kids to school thinking, they're taking care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an example of that with my granddaughter. My granddaughter was diagnosed with dyslexia 2 years ago. That set me on another path, Mandy. I decided, okay, now I got to do this.
Right.
And so I will be finished this summer with to become a CALT, a certified academic language therapist. And one of the best blessings of all of that is that I'm getting to teach 3 classes a day of dyslexia in my own school. And so every morning I teach dyslexia classes.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a need.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, it's we've got to do something about this. We've got to tackle it.
Yeah.
But my son-in-law said, well, I send her to school. Those people have master's degrees. They should be able to do what they need to do to make it best for her. And so I'd explain to him how it really works.
Say the quiet part out loud. What's the truth?
Exactly. The truth is that, there's one dyslexia teacher, maybe 2, and how many kids with dyslexia or with reading challenges that need to be serviced. Mm-hmm. And so the truth is your child is probably not getting speech 3 times a week. They're probably not getting occupational therapy once a week. It might be once a month. I just heard that in a district I won't name, they're doing speech therapy virtually. There's not a speech therapist in that school. They're doing it virtually. Now, I understand that we've learned a lot of things about virtual instruction, but when you have a 5-year-old and you're trying to learn to articulate, I think it's probably best if you're sitting right in front of that kiddo.
Yeah.
Those aren't services that are best practices. And I think that's what we need to, to look at,
Yeah.
the best practice for our kiddos.
That's great. Thank you for saying that, because I think that people don't realize that some of the my favorite parents that I cry with, that show up, that write the letters, that make the phone calls, that testify, they are our special needs parents, because they're promised something and then they realize their child is not receiving it. And I have a father. His name's Vincent, and he has a daughter who has high special needs. And he's kept me up to date with the ARD meetings and everything else because his daughter is not getting, he's very, very frustrated. And I can remember this summer when I talked to him, he told me that in the spring, he walked in and he, out of his own pocket, has hired an attorney to come in to help advocate. And he walked in with attorneys. I won't name them because I don't know if I'll get sued. I don't know what the laws are with that. I'm not a lawyer. But basically, if you look at any TASB conference or anything that there's sponsors, or even if you go pull the PEMS data and you look who is in all of these districts, this firm is the largest law firm in Texas public schools. He said they walked in with 5 attorneys to argue with him. And he's like, he wants an ES, and he's like, I just need to take my child out of this situation.
Right.
It's not working.
Right.
This has happened over and over, and he's documented this, and it crushes my heart. He needs the freedom for his child.
Right.
Because the attorneys don't know his child.
Right.
They don't care.
No.
They don't care.
No, and the fact is the school doesn't know his child.
No.
And that's the other part that's unfair.
Yeah. Okay. So before we wrap up, thank you for sharing all these great stories about Chairman Buckley, a.k.a. Brad. And
my fave.
I love it. I love hearing those personal stories, because our representatives, they are people. And I think sometimes.
Oh, Brad gives his cell phone out.
Yeah.
People are constantly in contact with him, including myself. Yesterday, I read an article. I was like, is this true? I want to know. And, he's just
I'm sure. And I think, and that's it, I know, I've seen him. He takes a lot of arrows.
Yes, he does.
Because he's in the I Trust Parents camp. I can love public schools. His wife works at him.
Yes.
Right? I can love public schools while also acknowledging it's not the best for every single child. I'll never forget the time in education committee hearing when we were hearing they were hearing his bill and discussing it, and it was part of the cabal that I talked about, lobbyists, and association leaders. And they were talking about how if a child just goes to any school that's not their zone school, they were literally not even talking about an ESA at this point. They were talking about what's called open enrollment, which is the ability just to go to a different public school. And I can remember Chairman said, wait a second. We chose to send my daughter to a different school than what we were zoned to. Was I defunding the public school system? And, and he was like, well, yes, you were. And I thought, oh my gosh, you people are insane. Right. This is nuts. Yeah. We can love both.
That's right.
I have 3 kids. I love them all.
Yes. And they might not all fit.
And they're not the same.
In the same.
They're not.
School.
They're not the same. They're not the same. Right. I can love them all and what was best for them all.
That's right.
I send my kids to a public school.
Right. Well, and my kids were all in public school.
Yeah, it's like
and it worked for them.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want you to look in that camera. Okay. I want you to talk to your good friend Brad, Chairman Buckley.
Yes.
I want you to talk to the legislators, particularly those rural Republican ones that are in districts similar to yours, that are apprehensive, that they're hearing from their superintendents. Talk to them. And talk to the parents of Texas about why empowering parents with education savings accounts is needed for every single parent, particularly those with students with special needs, so they can be in the right environment for their child.
Okay.
Right there.
I want to first focus on kids and want you to ask yourself, what is best for kids? what is best for our future. And the opportunities are not the same. They're not the same for you. They're not the same for me. You may have gone to a private school. I went to a public school. But it worked for you and it worked for me. Our children need choices, but most importantly, our parents need choices. When their child is being bullied, their child is saying, I hate school, I want to kill myself, or their grades are failing and we don't know why they're failing, but they're not getting the extra attention that they need, that individualized instruction that they might be able to get if they went to a private school with smaller numbers. I want you to think about the child that has been in elementary school with that one teacher and everything has been great and everything's perfect, and they get to middle school and just walking down the hallway feels like they're standing on a freeway. And those are words. Direct words from one of my students. I can't walk down the hallway because I feel like I'm standing on a freeway and cars are just going as fast as they can. And at any minute, I'm going to get mauled. I want you to think about the child that didn't eat for weeks because the cafeteria was so overstimulating that even headphones didn't help. His parents didn't know he was not eating until they found out one night because he was so sick. They took him to the doctor and he was anemic. And they said, what has he been eating? Well, he had to finally tell them, I haven't been eating. It's too loud in there. I can't. I want you to think about the child that can't pass the STAR exam and they keep telling him if you don't pass it, you're not going to go to the next grade. You have to pass this. And that child has a near nervous breakdown and ends up in a mental clinic and has a stay of a week to months. I want you to think about every child in Texas. Every child deserves a choice to be the best they can be, whether it be in a public system or a private system. Take it all the way back to kids and what is best for kids.
Dr. Tracy Hanson, thank you for the amazing work.
You're welcome.
I'm just blown away by your heart, and I'm so touched that you came and shared it with us. Thank you for everything you're doing. This has been really special because you captured it all right there in speaking to Texans. Thank you for joining us here on Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin, and now you have the power.